The Crown and the Chaos, a dusty ledger of the British royal bloodline. In the year 1066, the winds of fate howled across the English Channel. A bastard duke from Normandy crossed the sea, sword in hand, and carved his name into history, William the Conqueror. Thus begins a thousand-year tale soaked in blood, ambition, betrayal, and tradition, a story not of kings alone, but of a crown forever teetering between order and upheaval. This is the dusty ledger of the British royal family. Chapter 1: The Conquest and the Chaos. William the Conqueror's claim to the throne wasn't divine, it was decisive. After slaying Harold at Hastings, William forged a new dynasty. From his loins came three children who mattered to our tale: William II, Henry I, and Adela. When William II died, suspiciously, an accident in the woods, his brother Henry seized the crown. His reign was long and complicated. 26 children he sired, but only 2 were legitimate. One of them was Empress Matilda. Henry wanted her to rule, swore his men to honor her claim, cross their hearts, hope to die, stick a needle in their eye. But when Henry died, Matilda was away in France, and her cousin Stephen snatched the throne with faster horses and sharper steel. A civil war erupted, the anarchy, as it came to be known. Matilda, fierce and unyielding, clawed back territory, but she was never crowned. Her throne, like so many in this tale, was claimed, but never truly held. Chapter 2: The Rise of the Plantagenets. When Stephen's heirs vanished into obscurity or nunhood, the throne passed to Matilda's son, Henry II, a king who decided to change the rules. He crowned his own son, Henry the Young, as co-king while still alive. Rule of 2. 1 is none, 2 is 1. But young Henry rebelled, because that's what sons of kings often do. Civil war returned. By the end, both Henrys were dead, and the crown passed to a warrior king, Richard the Lionheart. After Richard came his brother John, whose greed and cruelty forced English nobles to force his hand and ink the Magna Carta. The Plantagenet line continued, Henry III to Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots, to Edward II, who was deposed by his own wife, Isabella, the She-Wolf of France, then to Edward III, whose reign would plant the seeds of England's bloodiest civil conflict. Chapter 3: The Roses in Bloom and Blood. Edward III had 5 sons. Not one of them would wear the crown. When he died, the throne passed to his grandson, Richard II, a boy king in a kingdom full of wolves. He was deposed by Henry IV, his cousin, sparking a new line of monarchs and a chain reaction of vendettas. Eventually, the cousins of York and Lancaster, both descended from Edward III, turned swords on one another in the War of the Roses, a dynastic death spiral that saw kings rise and fall like dice in a tavern brawl. Henry VI, mad and malleable. Edward IV, bold and brash. Back to Henry VI, then again to Edward IV. Edward died. His son, Edward V, aged just 12, vanished, last seen in the Tower of London, guarded by his loving uncle Richard. Richard III took the throne, but fate would not let him rest long. Chapter 4: A New House Rises, the Tudors at Bosworth Field. 1485, a crown was plucked from Richard's crushed skull and handed to Henry Tudor. Henry VII married Elizabeth of York, uniting the warring houses in blood and marriage, a truce forged with rings and steel. Then came Henry VIII, larger than life, larger than law, a man who broke with Rome, married 6 times, and redrew the lines of inheritance himself. His only son, Edward VI, took the throne as a child and rewrote the rules to favor his cousin, Lady Jane Grey. She reigned for 9 days. Then came Mary I, who burned Protestants and buried Jane Grey's legacy. She died childless, and her sister Elizabeth I ruled next, a queen of war, wit, and unmatched power, who also died childless. Chapter 5: Scotland and the Stuart Union. Enter James VI of Scotland, great-grandson of Henry VIII's sister. With Elizabeth gone, England turned north for its next king. Thus, James VI became James I of England, king of 2 thrones, 2 crowns, and 2 identities. But peace was fleeting. His son, Charles I, faced rebellion and war. In 1649, he lost more than his crown. He lost his head. The monarchy dissolved, replaced by a man who swore he was no king, Oliver Cromwell. Yet his power was absolute and his office hereditary. The people tired of his sanctimony. His son was weak, so the crown returned, this time to Charles II. But the pendulum swung again. Charles died childless. His brother James II, a Catholic king in a Protestant realm, was forced into exile. The people offered the throne to William and Mary, his Protestant daughter and her Dutch husband. The monarchy was reborn, constitutional and conditional. Chapter 6. The Final Reset, the Hanoverian Blueprint. After Queen Anne failed to produce an heir, despite 17 pregnancies, Parliament had had enough. They rewrote the game. The crown would now pass through the Protestant Sophia of Hanover, granddaughter of James I. Thus began the line of George. George I, George II, George III, who lost America and his mind. His son, George IV, left no heirs. William IV likewise. So the crown landed on a queen who would shape an age, Victoria. She ruled from 1837 to 1901. An empire rose in her name, and the world changed beneath her reign. Chapter 7. The Windsors and the Modern Crown. The death of Queen Victoria in 1901 marked the end of not just a monarch, but an era, the final breath of the 19th century. Her son, Edward VII, brought with him a new rhythm, a new style, cosmopolitan, charismatic, modern. Yet he reigned for only 9 short years. Then came George V, the steady hand during a world unraveling. His reign witnessed the carnage of the First World War, the fall of imperial cousins across Europe, and the rising specter of revolution. To protect the monarchy, George did something unthinkable for a royal family tied to the German bloodlines of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. He rebranded. In 1917, amid the thunder of war, the family adopted a new name, simple and strong, Windsor. A name forged in defiance, meant to sound English, feel English, be English. But storms brewed again. George's eldest son, Edward VIII, was crowned in 1936, but barely warmed the throne. He was a man torn between duty and desire won. Her name was Wallis Simpson, an American, twice divorced, and wholly incompatible with the Church of England's expectations of a queen. When the country refused to accept her, Edward chose love over crown. He abdicated with quiet sorrow. His brother, a shy, stammering man, never meant to be king, became George VI, a symbol of quiet resilience. He would carry Britain through its darkest nights, bomb raids, ration lines, and the grinding machine of global war. And when the dust settled, he emerged a father not just to his daughters, but to the nation. He passed in 1952, and the crown fell upon the head of a 25-year-old woman, still mourning her father, Elizabeth II. Chapter 8. The Weight of Time. Queen Elizabeth II came to the throne not in conquest, but in quiet resolve. Her reign began in black and white film, it ended in 4K digital clarity. She reigned across generations, through war and peace, recession and renaissance, scandal and celebration. She was a fixed point in a changing world, meeting 15 prime ministers, greeting astronauts and revolutionaries, watching her empire dissolve into a commonwealth. She held the monarchy aloft during times that might have shattered it. Diana's death, family turmoil, public skepticism. She said little, but what she didn't say often mattered more. In 2015, she surpassed Queen Victoria to become the longest reigning monarch in British and world history. Yet the longer the reign, the heavier the crown. In 2022, after 70 years on the throne, Queen Elizabeth passed. Mourned not only in Britain, but across the globe, her death marked the end of an epoch. The crown, once more, moved forward. Chapter 9. Legacy in the Modern World. Now sits Charles III, the longest heir-in-waiting in history. For over 70 years, he stood in the wings, an eternal prince, burdened by expectation and scrutiny. His time has come, but the world he inherits is not the one his mother ruled. The monarchy today is less certain, less divine. It's a tradition weighed down by history, questioned by modern values, and yet still clung to by millions. From Charles, the line continues to Prince William, and after him to Prince George, a child born into legacy, born beneath the gaze of centuries. But the royal family is no longer the engine of empire. It is no longer untouchable. It survives now, not by command or conquest, but by consent. The crown today is a relic and a mirror. It reflects both the grandeur of old and the fractures of the present. The dust of crowns. 1,000 years ago, a man crossed the sea with a claim to rule. Since then, the English crown has passed through warriors and widows, rebels and regents, martyrs and monsters. It has survived beheadings, abdications, civil wars, and world wars. It has outlasted empires and endured revolutions. It has buried queens and raised children to kings. And still, it endures. But this is no fairy tale. The crown is not enchanted. It is not sacred. It is forged in iron will and polished by myth. It is power, disguised as pageantry. And though monarchs fade and bloodlines twist, the story of the royal family is not just about those who wear the crown, but the world that insists it still matters. This is the dusty ledger of the British royal family.